All right, so are you ready for this? Today we're going to deep dive into Jim Gaffigan's weight loss journey. A listener sent us this Reddit post title that kind of got them thinking. Plus, there's this article that lays out like the whole story. And I got to say, this is more than just a simple before and after.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You've got this comedian, right? Like the guy's known for making us laugh about eating Hot Pockets and stuff, and then bam, he changes his whole lifestyle.
Makes you wonder, right? What made him decide to do that? Like, what was the turning point?
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of those Hot Pockets, maybe we should give a little background on Gaffigan first for anyone who might not know all his work.
Yeah, good idea.
So Jim Gaffigan, he's a pretty big deal in American stand-up. He was born, let me see, July 7th, 1966. And he's not just a comedian, he's also an actor and a writer. And his style is, really observational. He finds the funny stuff in everyday things.
Especially family life.
Especially family life, which makes sense because he's got a huge family.
6 kids, I think, yeah. So we've got this food-loving comedian, right? But then the article talks about this moment, this realization he had that his eating habits were not exactly setting him up for success, health-wise.
It's true. And the article makes it clear it wasn't about vanity. It wasn't like he suddenly wanted to fit into a smaller size or anything. It was deeper. Like he realized that he just couldn't keep living that way forever, if he wanted to be healthy.
Yeah, that makes sense. It had to be sustainable. And actually, that brings us to the Reddit post you sent in. The title was, Jim Gaffigan Weight Loss. How did he lose weight? It's funny how people always want to know the secret. That one weird trick.
It's true. Everyone's looking for that quick fix. What's cool about this article is it really focuses on Gaffigan forming these sustainable habits, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the crash diets and all that stuff. It's about, building a healthier way of relating to food in general.
Okay, so sustainable is the key word here. But what did that actually look like for him? Like, how did he make it happen?
So he took this balanced approach with food, eating a lot more whole foods, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, all that good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah. But what seems to have really made a difference was this thing called mindful eating. I know it sounds kind of trendy, but it's actually super simple. It's just about paying attention to what you're eating. You really savor each bite, and you're actually aware of when your body's telling you it's had enough.
Wait, hold on. You mean like actually thinking about the food while you're eating it? Because I feel like most of the time I just, inhale whatever's in front of me, especially when I'm busy.
That's exactly it. That's what mindful eating is trying to change. You slow down, you enjoy the taste, and you listen to what your body's telling you.
Yeah.
What's interesting is the article mentions that for Gaffigan, it wasn't about never eating certain foods again. Like he wasn't trying to cut out all the things he loved. It was more about shifting his perspective, from mindlessly eating whatever to actually enjoying the experience.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So less about deprivation and more about finding that joy in food.
Exactly.
But let's be real for a second. Being a comedian, that lifestyle can be pretty crazy, right? I mean, the late night shows, traveling all the time, I can't imagine it's easy to keep up those healthy habits.
You're totally right. And the article actually talks about that. Gaffigan had to figure out how to make healthy choices while he was on the road, dealing with all that. That probably meant planning meals and snacks ahead of time.
Yeah.
Packing his own food, maybe, and getting creative when he was ordering at restaurants.
I bet. I mean, think about it. If he can pull it off with his schedule, it gives the rest of us some hope, right?
It's like if he can do it, anyone can do it.
Right. It's like he's setting an example. It's not about being perfect. It's about making it work in your own life. But all right, so we've talked a lot about the mindful eating, being consistent. But what about the why? Like the bigger changes Gaffigan went through beyond just the physical stuff.
Yeah, that's really important. And the article really emphasizes this shift in his mindset. It's like he embraced this whole journey as a positive thing, a way to improve his overall well-being, not like a punishment or something he had to do.
Right. So it wasn't just about losing weight. It was more about gaining a new perspective on health and, just being happy.
Exactly. And I think that positive mindset had a lot to do with why he was successful. If you think about healthy habits as something you get to do rather than something you have to do, it changes everything. It's like suddenly it's not a chore anymore.
Yeah, it's empowering. And speaking of empowerment, the article mentions this really cool side effect. It seems like Gaffigan's weight loss actually had a good impact on his career.
It's really interesting. He didn't shy away from talking about it in his act. He found new material, new ways to connect with his audience. He even directly addressed the weight loss journey, with his typical style. A little self-deprecating, but funny.
So he basically turned his personal life into comedy gold. But how did people react? Did audiences connect with the new material?
They totally did. The article talks about how much people appreciated his honesty, the fact that he was willing to make fun of himself, and his ability to find the humor in struggles of losing weight. It made it even more relatable. It showed that, hey, you can be successful, you can be famous, and still deal with the same stuff everyone else does.
Yeah, it humanized him in a way. It's like he broke down that wall between celebrity and, regular person.
Absolutely. And it shows how powerful it can be to just be open about your struggles. When people share that kind of stuff, it makes others feel less alone. Like, it's okay to not be perfect.
So true. But there's this one thing that really caught my attention. The article never actually says how much weight he lost.
Now, that's a curious detail, isn't it? It might be intentional. Maybe the writer wanted to shift the focus away from the number on the scale and more onto the bigger picture of Gaffigan's transformation.
Yeah. It's like they're saying it's not about the pounds lost, but about the quality of life gained. But why do you think they did that? Like, why not just tell us how much weight he lost?
Well, that brings up a really interesting question, one that I think our listener might be thinking about too. And maybe we should dig into that a bit more.
Okay, so we were talking about how even when you're trying to make positive changes, there are always going to be challenges. Like, did Gaffigan ever just hit a wall? Did he ever just crave those hot pockets, the ones he made famous in his act?
Well, funny you should ask that because the article actually addresses that. It says he definitely struggled with cravings, especially for those, let's call them less healthy foods that he used to love.
Oh, I can relate to that. I mean, we all have those comfort foods, right? The things we reach for when we need a little boost or just out of habit. So how did he handle it? Did he have any, tricks for staying on track when those cravings hit?
What's interesting is that it doesn't sound like he cut things out completely. Like he didn't go cold turkey. Instead of telling himself he could never have certain foods again, he focused on, moderation.
Moderation.
Yeah. He let himself indulge sometimes, but in a controlled way. And, get this, he didn't beat himself up about it.
I like that. Indulge without the guilt trip. Because let's be honest, when you tell yourself you can never have something again, it just makes you want it even more.
Exactly. It's like that forbidden fruit thing, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times that kind of restrictive mindset just doesn't work. It backfires. It seems like Gaffigan's approach was more about making peace with food, not this constant battle against it.
And that must have been really tough with his career, right? I mean, think about it. Comedians are always on the go, late night shows, traveling, all that. It's not exactly a recipe for healthy eating.
It's true. And the article mentions this. Gaffigan had to be strategic about how he maintained those healthy habits while he was on the road. I mean, travel can throw your whole routine off. There are temptations everywhere. It would be easy to just slip back into old patterns.
So what did he do? Pack a cooler full of kale smoothies?
I don't know about the kale smoothies. But the article suggests that he was all about planning ahead. He probably made a point of choosing healthier options when he ate out, packed snacks so he wouldn't be tempted to buy junk food, and maybe even sought out grocery stores or healthier restaurants while he was traveling.
So he basically became like a healthy eating ninja, navigating the world of gas stations and airport food.
I love that. And it's a good lesson for anyone trying to stick to their goals in a tough environment, right? If a comedian who's constantly surrounded by temptation can do it, it gives the rest of us hope.
It shows that you don't have to live in a, health bubble to make healthy choices. So we've talked about the how, the mindful eating, the exercise, but what about the why? Were there other changes beyond just the physical stuff?
Yeah, the article really highlights this change in his mindset. It's like he embraced this whole journey as something positive, like a way to improve his well-being, not some kind of punishment or a chore.
So it wasn't just about, shrinking his waistline. It was about growing as a person.
Yeah, exactly. And that positive mindset probably made a huge difference. When you see healthy habits as something you get to do, not something you have to do, it changes the whole game.
Yeah, it's, like you said before, it becomes empowering. And speaking of empowerment, the article mentions something else really interesting, how his weight loss seems to have had a positive impact on his career, too.
It's pretty amazing. He didn't shy away from incorporating this whole experience into his act. He found new material, new ways to connect with people. He even talked about his weight loss directly, but in a funny way, of course.
Yeah. So he turned his personal transformation into comedy. But how did audiences respond? Did they connect with the new material?
It seems like they really did. They loved his honesty, the fact that he was willing to make fun of himself And his ability to find the humor in the whole weight loss struggle, I think it just made him even more relatable. It proved that you can be successful, you can be famous, and still go through the same ups and downs as everyone else.
Yeah, it makes him more human, you know? It breaks down those barriers.
Totally. And it highlights how powerful it can be to be vulnerable. When people are open about their struggles, it helps others to embrace their own imperfections.
It's true. We all have them. But there's this one thing that I found really curious. The article never actually says how much weight he lost.
It is an interesting omission, isn't it? And I wonder if it was intentional. Maybe the writer wanted us to focus on the bigger picture of Gaffigan's transformation rather than fixating on a specific number.
Like they're saying, hey, it's not about the pounds, it's about the journey. But why do you think they made that choice? Why not just tell us how much weight he lost?
Well, that brings up a really thought-provoking question, and one that I think our listener might be asking themselves too. Maybe we should unpack that a little bit.
So we were talking about how the article never actually says how much weight Gaffigan lost. And it just got me thinking, why do you think they made that choice?
Well, it really makes you think about how we view weight loss. Like, we're so used to focusing on the numbers, the pounds, the dress size, all that. But sometimes I think we miss the bigger picture because of that.
It's like we're so focused on the destination that we forget to enjoy the actual journey.
Right. Exactly. And by not giving us that specific number, it's like the article is encouraging us to look beyond just the superficial stuff,
Yeah.
to really consider the changes Gaffigan went through, the things that really matter.
Like, yeah, the increased energy, the confidence, like all those things you can't really measure.
Exactly. It's about how you feel, how you think, how you live your life. And those things are important for everyone, whether they're trying to lose weight or not. It's about being the best version of yourself, however you define that.
And that's a powerful message, especially these days when everyone's so worried about how they look. It's like a reminder that real change comes from within. And that's something we can all strive for.
And it's not just about individual change either. Gaffigan's story, it kind of reflects this bigger shift that's happening in our culture. Like, we're starting to see a more holistic view of health and well-being.
It's like we're finally realizing that being healthy isn't about fitting into some perfect mold. It's about feeling good in your own skin, both physically and mentally.
Right. And it's about accepting that we're all different. Like, there's no one right way to be healthy. What works for one person might not work for another. And that's okay. It's about finding what feels good for you.
So for our listener who was so interested in Jim Gaffigan's story, what would you say is the biggest takeaway from all this?
I think the biggest thing is to remember to shift your focus away from just the numbers. It's not about obsessing over how much weight you lost, but about how much healthier and happier you feel.
Yeah, focus on the experience, not just the end result. And be kind to yourself along the way.
Absolutely. Progress, not perfection. That's the key.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up. But before we go, we want to leave our listener with one final thought.
So, next time you find yourself fixated on a number, whether it's on a scale or in a headline or wherever, ask yourself, what's the real story here? What changes do I really want to see in my life? And what does being healthy truly mean for me?
It's your journey. Make it your own.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Jim Gaffigan's weight loss journey. We hope you found it interesting and maybe even a little inspiring.
And until next time, keep exploring.